Guilty Gear Strive.
So I'm going to rapid fire my way through Guilty Gear Strive here. This is on the PC and it's super modded. The term super modded just means caked in as many mods as a single person can find. I made a lot of changes here to majority of the characters' ethnicities, and hopefully you'll understand once I explain the method to my madness. I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to go straight into the dojo or the training mode. Okay, these are going to be some pretty wild changes here. First up is Testament. Testament was one of those racially confused, or rather gender confused character designs. They couldn't make up their mind if he was male or female, and if you guys know me, I don't like confusion. So I just picked the sex for the character. The sex that I chose, of course, is female. He's very scantily clad with very small leather bikini. Looks a lot darker, and it fits the aesthetic of death. Of course, he has the pale skin indicating death, and still the pitch black hair. This is just a raven color scheme that is usually gone with when associating with Gothic or the Grim Reaper. This is the end result. Next up is Jacko. If you're familiar with Jacko, her stick is Halloween. Yes, she has to survive off eating candy. Her most iconic traits or details are her white hair and her red eyes, which are two things that I kept on that character. Now she doesn't mimic so closely Elvis, and she mimics, well, what her backstory it suggests. Next up is Nagoriyuki. Nagoriyuki, if you go through the story mode for the game, you'll discover he's a vampire. Vampires have a very distinct or very specific color scheme. It's always been the same since the beginning of time. Vampires typically wear black and red. As you can see for this color scheme, my overhaul still kept his African American skin, but I just caked on top of that, of course, a lot of black and red to his color scheme, and this is the end result. Actually, scratch that. I think his skin tone, he's actually a lot more pale. I think his skin tone is actually more like a white person, but which is also a typical thing with vampires due to when vampires were invented. It was during a time where the popular thing was for it to be someone who mimics Dracula. Next up is Milia Rage. Milia Rage is Russian. Fun fact. Russians don't have blonde hair typically. Russians' most common hair color is actually brown. I also changed up her color aesthetic from that weird light, bright tan to something black. And I also changed her uniform to a military or general's uniform. This fits her so perfectly, including her name. Next up is Chip Zanuff. Chip Zanuff is actually a Japanese character. The kicker here with Chip is he's an America raised or US raised Japanese character. So I gave him the typical or the common hair color for Japanese, which the genetically dominant hair color or trait for Japanese people is black hair. Aside from that, I also gave him glasses. In the story mode, he's a very intelligent character. He's pretty much the president, actually. And this is the end result. Next up is probably one of my wildest changes, which is Soul Bad Guy. His original color scheme was mostly red with some black, white, and gold highlights. But mostly the most noticeable thing about him was the edgy black and red for his color scheme. I went ahead and put red, white, and blue. Gave him a lot of jean attire because he's based on the stereotypical depiction of a white person that most Japanese people had during the time that he was invented. And for me, I've always thought that they had it wrong. This is more American. I also gave him glasses. These are modded in, of course. And the reason I put the shades on his face is because it's typical American attire. You'll notice immediately his hair color too has been changed from black to blonde because the typical American is actually blonde hair and blue eyed. So I think this color scheme fits him a lot more accurately. Next up is Kai Kiski. Kaiski's for Kai Kiski's color scheme, I chose to go with something a lot different. His original design had blonde hair. Um, Kai Kiski is French. Most French people actually don't have blonde hair. They actually have dark traits. They have brown hair. You they can have green, blue, or brown eyes. So I chose to give them blue eyes here. But this is the end result. This actually looks and feels like a French character. Next up is May. May's shtick is that she's super cute. Originally, she was orange and black. Her original color scheme doesn't look like a pirate color scheme either way. So I decided, you either go hard or you go home. I just went ahead and gave her a Barbie doll color scheme and made her super adorable. And this is the end result. She's just super cute. Next up is Zato One. Zato One's original color scheme. His original costume design was awful to me. He had just a full spandex bodysuit with some weird Cyclops visor, or he had a band with a belt on top of the band covering his eyes. It just everything about him looked terrible. So I chose to put him in a suit, and I changed his overall color aesthetic to really pale white, um, black, and of course red. He's a vampire. His powers or his attack set actually revolve around him controlling the shadows. So I think this is a good change. Next up is Ino. Ino's a rocker. Ino rocks out. The cool thing about Ino is that her background is unknown. We don't really know anything about Ino, so pretty much sky's the limit. The first thing I chose to do with Ino was take out all the bright reds and replace them with blacks because I'm pretty sure her outfit, majority of it, is supposed to be leather. The cliche color for leather is actually black, so I think this fits her a lot better. Another change that I made, because she's a hardcore rocker or rock and roller, is I chose to put the red in the proper places. The red and black aesthetically typically are commonly used color scheme for rock and roll or heavy metal, and this is just the end result, a lot more gritty. Next up is Happy Chaos. Happy Chaos color scheme was just terrible by default. He had like blue skin, and it just I hated the way he looked originally. I went and found a color palette that just changes him to a human. And I also made his color scheme mimic the human that he's derived from, which is like a makeshift female Batman in the story mode. And this is the end result. And also I changed his guns to to like M4s or M16s because America. Next up is Bridget. Bridget by default had blonde hair. Also, this was one of those gender confused characters. You just didn't know if it was a boy or a female, and it also did everything it could to confuse you sexually. So I just picked the sex for the character. I made Bridget into a female. I also changed up the color scheme for Bridget too because it made no sense. Bridget is an Irish name. How do I know Bridget is an Irish name? It's just common sense. It's what my brain tells me, and I think history dictates that Bridget comes from the Irish. So the first thing that I did is I got rid of the blonde hair. Most Irish don't have blonde hair. Most Irish have light brown hair. They also don't have blue eyes. Typically, they have I'm gonna say green. They have green. Yeah, I'm just gonna say they typically have green eyes. So what I chose to do is I got rid of the blonde, I changed it up with brown, and I also gave her a greenish hazel type eye color. Aside from that, you'll notice her outfit. She dresses like a nun. In the base game, the nun outfit was a very light or sky blue. It made no sense. No nun in existence wears sky blue. So I just changed it up with a very dark, pale, slightly greenish, green tinted color, and this is the end result. It looks more like a nun, and you still get that Irish feeling from looking at the character. Next up is Gold Lewis Dickinson. Gold Lewis Dickinson is just a really old general. He's actually a 3 star. You can tell he's a 3 star by his collar. I chose to give him blue eyes and white hair because you have a lot of, or you need a lot of time in service in order to become a general at all. So it's a given to give him white hair. And the white and black aesthetic, of course, refers to the CIA. He's actually a heavily involved government character. So this is the end result. Next up is Giovanna. Giovanna, I got a nagging suspicion that this character is supposed to be based on Rihanna. Rihanna's an American celebrity. Rihanna has a very distinctive color scheme and style too. The original Giovanna had red or pink hair. Rihanna actually wears red or pink hair, but she doesn't wear it with this hairstyle. So for the short bob cut, I chose to change her hair to black. It's much closer to what Rihanna looks like. And I also changed her eye color to a brown or more of a hazelish color because that's Rihanna's real life eye color. Also, I tweaked her uniform a little bit to give her a first and foremost a coat top so that it's it makes more sense. Her outfit it blends a lot better with this jacket on, and the end result is just a professional, sleek, cool, dark looking Rihanna. Next up is Ram Lethal. Now for Ram Lethal, I love my chocolate waifus. I'm all for having more black characters, but Ram Lethal's color scheme was awful. She's one of those chocolate waifus that has the hair color that's so off that it looks Garyu or it looks off putting. So the first thing I chose to do immediately is to change her skin to match her hair color. And well, fortunately, her skin tone is a very, very pale Caucasian. On top of that, I changed her outfit too. Her name is Ram Lethal. To me, Ram Lethal is a very threatening, very intimidating name. So I gave her an outfit that's a very dark black and a color scheme that's it's naggingly suspiciously close to the Gestapo or to a Nazi, but eh, you know, the end result is the same. It's a very dark character that you can hate. And also I modeled her head to have a very evil smile. Just to go along with the flying demon orbs with teeth everywhere that she has floating around her. Next up is Potemkin. For Potemkin, his original design was just awful. You could tweak his design and it's still gonna be pretty much awful. But I think this feels a lot better. The first thing I did for Potemkin was took that helmet off. That helmet looks dumb. And I also reduced some of the gaudy armor that he wore. Specifically removing all those giant lumps of metal from his gauntlets and among other places. And this is the end result. You just feel like you're playing with a huge military dude, which is not bad. Next up is Axel Lowe. Fun fact: Axel Lowe is British. British people, on average, don't have blonde hair. The average British person has is a brunette. So the first thing I did was change his hair color to something that's racially sensitive. And I also got rid of all the crazy blues. I get it, he's based on a popular celebrity or an already existing character who has a very distinct color scheme. But the issue is this character is supposed to be British. So I gave him a British hair color. I tweaked the color scheme for his outfit to be a lot more dark. And as you can see for his belt, I still kept his little flag there. And this is the end result. Something that looks like an actual Brit. Next up is Faust. I do not understand what they were going for with Faust from default. I think he was just supposed to be big, scary, creepy character. I'm American. we have, we have a pop culture already of horror, and I just put on him all the most horrific things that I could come up with. Starting with the William Shatner mask. If you're not familiar with the William Shatner mask, it refers to Michael Myers. On top of that, I also replaced his model with a buff model because Michael Myers isn't a wiry or skinny character, so it just fits him better aesthetically. And this is the end result. It still looks and feels like a creepy horror character. It's just a lot darker and less goofy than the original design. Next up is Leo Whitefang. Well, I don't have I don't have redhead characters. I wanted some redheads in the game, so I chose to make Leo Whitefang my redhead. His original design screams lion to me. He looks like a lion. I of course removed that coat that had the giant mane, but I also gave him facial hair. I think this fits him. I think this fits him very well. Something about it having this Scottish or this red head design is just perfect for this character instead of what he was by default, which was a blonde haired a freaking Aryan. Next up is Angie Mito. For Angie Mito, he didn't really require much change. Angie Mito is actually, you can tell by his name, he's an Asian character. The only thing that I changed about him was I took out a lot of the, I don't know what they were going for. He felt kind of homosexual, or he looked sexually confused. His original design, specifically the black part of his character's costume that you're seeing here, was bare chest, and it was kind of weird. I also took the glasses off. He had these very small monocle-ish circular glasses that he would wear that just they didn't make sense for his character design, so I just removed them. And this is the end result. He feels a lot cooler. He's a fan character that I'd actually pick now. Next character is Biken. Biken has a very messed up backstory. Biken is actually a traveling, wandering Ronin. She Everything that she has ever known and loved is pretty much dead. It was murdered at some point. That includes, but not limited to, her parents and all of her friends. So for her color design, I decided to get rid of the wild pink, even though I'm actually fond of her pink hair. I just think black is a lot more darker, and it screams I'm a killer. Speaking of screaming I'm a killer, I also did a few color tweaks and put a lot more black and red into her costume design. She actually feels like a very dark, more murderous samurai, but she still also feels like she's Asian. So, that has been all of my Guilty Gear characters. I tried to explain the method to my madness as to why I recolored them, and I've also made plenty of model changes that you should notice immediately. But yeah, this is Guilty Gear Strive. It's super modded, and hopefully you agree with a lot of my changes. God bless.